welcome back to Business Owners Speak. Today, I'm really happy to have with us Patrick Israel with STEM Media Group. Patrick, how are you today?
I'm doing really good, Matt. I can't complain. How are you?
I am fantastic as well. It's Friday, which is always nice, but really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Very curious to hear about your interesting ventures. So if you could, let's start with telling us a little bit about you and this business.
Yeah, as you just pointed out, we do a lot of different things, in our business. But at its core, we're a talent management and advertising agency. STEM manages some of the most, exciting creators in the country. The biggest blind creator in the world, Pete Gustin, Mac from Mr. Beast, Andy Morris from America's Got Talent is an incredible pianist, top three biggest piano creators on TikTok, and many more. And, we manage a little bit more differently than most companies. We're very hands-on, and our core business is centered around helping creators build their business so that they can focus on what they do best. And on the other side of our business, we ultimately support brands and helping brands ultimately build better and deeper relationships with creators and leverage the media space to ultimately scale their business. And it's kind of a bit of the reverse entrepreneurship effect, which I really love to speak about, which is, a lot of, businesses ultimately focused on building the product. Then they go after the audience, where creators build the audience, and then we go after the product. So it's a very unique proposition in how we, forge these relationships to maximize business development.
Yeah, and another interesting story of a business that wouldn't have even existed, 15, 20 years ago, right? So, or just in a completely different manner. So if you could walk us back to kind of how it started and how you came into this.
It's such a good question, because a lot of, the founders that I speak to, it always seems that, some of the best ideas, some of the best projects and ventures really come out of nowhere. And that's what happened to us. I met our first creator, Tyler, who is an exceptional talent. He's a part of the Iraq channel, who is one of the biggest in the country. We met him actually here in South Florida, where we're based. And we met him, and he had 10,000 subscribers. And I was building another business at the time called Extend Company. It's an international consulting business. And when I met Tyler, he was such a personality and such an exceptional human being. And when I asked him, what is your dream? What are you looking to do in your life? And he said, I want to be a content creator, and I'm building my media business. I said to him, look, I love what you're doing. I really believe in you. Let me take care of the business. You take care of the content, and let's grow together. I'd never really had any expectations. I worked for free. I really, just because I wanted to learn more about the business, I believed in him. And within a year, he had 1 million subscribers. So, we built a business around him. We ultimately helped him grow, with, diversify his revenue streams, and doing a great job. Just got word of mouth. We ended up signing more talent, and here we are a few years later.
All right. So for those that may not completely understand everything you just said, walk us through the granular piece where someone that has a personality online comes to you, and then what happens?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to understanding that, creators, these influencers, they're all individual media businesses, right? They all, produce content when that's their product. And our job on the management business, on the management side, I should say, is figure out how do we ultimately leverage the content, leverage the audience, the distribution that they have to generate revenue. And that can be done in multiple ways, right? Most agencies focused on brand deals, which is just advertisement, influencer marketing, which is a very prominent way of advertising today. And depending on your perspective, one of the most one of the strongest paths to brand building. But ultimately, it's again helping these creators understand that they're not just artists, because most influencers are great in content, they're great in storytelling, and the management piece, it's ultimately tying all these things together and in running this venture, this passion, and this hobby that these creative people have, and turning into a business. And that comes again in multiple flows, and forgetting that just like any business, you need legal, you need a finance infrastructure, and you need sales. You need to make sure that you have a P&L that's profitable, because a lot of these creators, they love content, they lack business. And that's even where Creator Fest came all about, which is an entrepreneurship event for creators. So it's really supporting them supporting these creators and these media businesses with the challenges that they face, which is turning this into a sustainable business.
Right. And so as far as services you provide, would you say you're more about promoting and finding opportunities, or is it kind of an all-encompassing, as you mentioned, almost like business coaching type role?
We're very hands-on, and that has been, from our experience, one of the best things that we can do, because management is like marriage, in the sense that everything about the creator's business, and it's a long-term partnership. So, arguably the management team is it's probably the most well knowledgeable group of people for that creator, for that media business. So it happens that if we know about where the revenue is coming from, we're the ones managing those relationships, managing that deal flow, and it just makes it so that we can ultimately support the overarching mechanism that runs the company. Production of the content is always something that the creator holds really close, because that they're the storytellers, they're the art behind the product. But from a business perspective, not that we do everything internally, but we work with great partners to ultimately give them that infrastructure to scale and focus on what they do best.
Right, which is the content, right?
And that alone is a full-time business, full-time role. People would be surprised.
I know, I'm sure. I have a 19-year-old, so I see over her shoulder as she's looking at her phone all sorts of people just like this, and that leads me to thinking, a lot of teenagers these days see that as a career path, right? And so, as valid as it may be or not be to some people my age, right? What are some missteps that you typically see that people that want to be influencers and want to be creators, what are some missteps they take that you would suggest they do otherwise?
It's such a good question, because I see it every day. And it's probably the most underlying problem in the entire creator economy, which is creators are great in creating, but they forget that they're running a business. So the biggest challenge in anyone's looking to start a career as a creator, founder, is that they treat it as a hobby and not as a business. And it's just like any other startup. There's a grind to it. It's money involved, right? You have to invest your time, a team of editing, post-production, logistics, depending on the kind of content you create. It takes a lot to put these things together. There's different types of content, different types of production levels, but especially in the world that we live today, it's a very competitive landscape. So, it's either you're in a very small niche, or you really have an incredible way of telling a story. So, my biggest point here would be treating it as a hobby, not as a startup. And we all know as founders that startups are a grind, and they take a long time to work, and sometimes it's, shorter than longer, but it's just like any other business. It's just the product is the personal brand, is the content, not perhaps something tangible, but it goes back to the reverse entrepreneurship effect. And having your North Star also really helps understand what do you need to do in the short term to prepare for the long term. So on my second point to that would be not having a clear direction of what your purpose is. If it's just to create content, or is it, I have a product that I really want to build, then by building my audience, my community, I can ultimately have a really strong distribution channel for my product. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. Most of the people that we manage, particularly, they focus 100% on the content, and we come in to help them build the product or build the relationships to make this into a business.
Sure. So tell us how Creator Fest mixes in with everything. Is that what you called it? Just make sure I say that right.
Yeah. Creator Fest, and it's in Orlando, Florida, in August this year, and it goes back into the biggest challenge that most creators face. And everyone has obviously a different story to tell, but there's a lot of events for the industry about content, about VidCon, which is a fan-centric event. Creator Fest is focused on the entrepreneurship side, behind the media business, understand distribution, product, monetization, strategy, and all the components that ultimately make up a media business. So it's really focused on providing the knowledge, the tools, the resources, and the ecosystem in terms of networking as well, to help them flourish and build their careers. And we really see this for all types of creators, because even established artists that are generating a lot of revenue, and this is something that we've seen from different verticals in media, sports, music, et cetera, once they make a lot of money, they don't necessarily know how to retain it. So Creator Fest is always also focused on giving them the full picture of what it means to be an entrepreneur in the media business.
Super valuable, I would imagine. So for you guys, and do you do traditional lead generation, or because as you're scrolling and you see and all the players, do you go after people, or are people coming to you at this point?
It's a great question. To be honest with you, most of what we do is focused around business development. So lead generation is a big part of what we do. Understand which brands align, based not necessarily just on the audience, but on the content that's being produced, that align on the values. and many more. So part of what we do is definitely lead generation in multiple areas. From a creator side, that's not something that we really focus on. We're really focused on making our customers money in the sense of our core business. And most of our creators is really word of mouth. So our focus is on really, partnering with brands, partnering with agencies, and partnering with, industry professionals within the media ecosystem and just overall creator economy to provide value and help these businesses grow. Sales is everything. And I make this joke even to my creators that forget the business that they're in. And I say, there's really only two types of people in a company. Maybe people disagree with this, but for me, it's people that sell and people that support the people that sell. And, when I think about that, that is our entire focus as a company. It's how do we generate revenue? How do we make this a win-win for everyone involved? Because a part of a challenge in being in our line of business is making everyone happy, because the creator needs to be happy with the product, with the brief, with the expectations, with the rates that are being discussed. And the brand needs to be happy with the results, the conversions, the CPM levels, which is just a metric to determine the rate per thousand views. And making both sides happy and still winning is our biggest actually core business. It's making everyone happy and creating win-win scenarios, which is just the core principle in life and business, in my opinion. But that's what we do is manage those expectations and make sure everyone's happy.
So interesting, because it's a traditional model, but a very new and non-traditional product, kind of. So as you are living in this world of ever-changing, popularity and platforms, how do you guys stay ahead and kind of figure out, what's next, or where should I steer this ship? Because you're in uncharted waters with a lot of, in an area that people haven't spent 20 years in. So like, how do you stay ahead of just the technology and what's popular in general?
Another great question. The industry is really new, right? And I mean, you mentioned in the beginning of this conversation, hey, 15 years ago, this really did not exist. And I'll make it even better by saying that pre-pandemic, the creator economy that we know today was not the same. So in the last 4 years, the industry has changed drastically with the surge, with the short form growth, right? Because long form has been the predominant way to consume video, and then short form just took off with TikTok and all the platforms caught up, which made it so that it really democratized the content creation process, because anyone can create short form, and made it so that and you mentioned so many young people today see that as their dream career because of all the benefits that it can bring. But part of the process with this dilution of I don't know if the word is dilution, but the influx of new incumbents in the business created so that you have to be more competitive than ever. And that if your cost of production, for example, is high for a short form video, someone that just vlogs can outcompete you and can charge maybe a quarter of your rates by still reaching the same number of people. So it created a very interesting dynamic, and that we have to be more competitive, more creative, and always looking forward. And partially how we do this is by going to all the industry events, which we get to meet people that are building new businesses. And for me, the LinkedIn today is the platform that we are able to network, connect with different founders and entrepreneurs. And I have so much to say about LinkedIn in my perspective of where this platform is going. I'm so bullish on it as well, for what it serves in the market. But going to events and really looking at the market leaders to understand what direction they're going. But in our case, because we manage the day-to-day operations of our creators, we're in the different niches, we're able to really feel firsthand, being the front line of all of what moves this business, really helps us understand and give us a lot of data to understand, hey, this is where we were 3 years ago. This is where we're at today. And we can kind of start assuming where we're going to go. But if I were to make a quick prediction to answer here, and this has already, I think The Economist has spoken about this. I don't remember exact numbers, but I think the creator economy up until recently was maybe a $40 billion industry, which is obviously significant. But it's really has, and even when we think about Hollywood, a huge market, but with a very small group of people. The creator economy has came and democratized this for everyone all around the world. You can be based in Singapore and producing content for an American audience and just blow up here and have an entire American audience building a business here. So in that process made it so that anyone around the world, regardless of where you live, if you live in New York and you're trying to produce content, you're gonna have to compete against people that are all around the world. And secondly, where we're heading towards 2030, and at this I remember accurately, they're saying it's going to be a $250 billion industry by 2030, which is, we're really not that far off for such incredible growth. But part of my point is that instead of being in a group of maybe 10,000 people, that at least the bulk of the revenue or the market size, now it's with 100,000 people. So it is so much more competitive. It's so much more complex in how deals are structured. You have to get so creative, in which once was an industry focus on how much followers you have. It migrated into how much views are you getting, and then now it's a combination between views and how much dollars are you converting in this campaign. So you not only have to be great in content, storytelling, retention, but also you have to be a great salesperson in conveying the story so that your audience is ultimately making a purchase and investing in your sponsor. And the media landscape as a whole, TV, Hollywood, it's definitely going to be impacted. We've saw so much changes already because of the influx of the new artists, the new actors are really coming from these creators. So it's a really awesome business, a really awesome industry to be a part of.
And so you just said storytelling, because my next question was going to be, as we look at Mr. Beast and all, the top 10, 15, 20 in the world, whatever they are, whether it's followers or views, like what is the difference maker? Like what sets the best apart from the rest?
There's a lot. There really is, there really is. But I would almost tie this back into just entrepreneurship again.
Yeah.
Understanding that this is a startup. The best creators are also a lot of times the best entrepreneurs that understand leadership, build a great team around them. You don't conquer the world by yourself. And those that inspire others to share the mission, that understand that you have to make everyone win to grow. But a lot of it comes down to the people that are most obsessed, people that love what they do. This is, for me, one of the most important things. I love what I do and everything I do. So for me, when you love what you do and you're excited to wake up every day and you're, no matter how many failures you have, you keep bouncing back and you keep grinding, because content is a lot of trial and error, just like startups. You pivot, you try different products, you learn from your audience, your customers, which in their case is partially their customers. You pivot, you really give your audience what they're looking for, and it's a process. Most people just give up in the process, just like any other business.
Yeah.
Most creators stop after 2 years. They burn themselves out. They go all in. They put all their money. The revenue does not come back, just like any business. You're not gonna start creating content or making money right away, unless, again, there's all the different scenarios. But for me, it's a combination of being business minded, connecting the creative with business right away. And I think that was one of the contributing factors to Tyler's success, is that he had a team, myself, to ultimately support him and guide him along the way and make sure that he's making the right decisions, both financially and legally, because there's a world of possibilities when you're producing content and you have a huge spotlight on you.
Right.
But avoiding burnout, so loving what you do, obsessing over and learning everything about the business that you're in, because sometimes you just want to learn about, how do I make cool videos that I like, but how do you also learn about the entire mechanism behind what it means to run a media business? Mr. Beast is just like CNN. It's just like Fox. He has products that he sells. He has an incredible team. He relies on advertisement. He does licensing, just like it's just like any other media business. Yeah. Obviously a little bit content's distributed a little bit differently, but I think it's a combination of those factors and those set of principles, I think that really make the difference maker. However, I've also seen people that have none of those and succeeded. So it's a combination of luck and everything else.
That's so interesting, because I think most people would just assume, well, you got to be as creative as possible and just do what's popular. And they don't think about the success being partly because of the foundation of a business that they've built. Right? Like, I don't even think that's in a lot of people's heads. And that's great for the younger people to hear that, look, you can be as popular and do as cool stuff as you want, but if you're not building a foundation of a business, you may not make it. And I think that's really, really wonderful advice. So
And I want to add one point because you said something else that's important, if I may, which is when you asked me how did this business start, how'd you guys get here, and my answer was I met a person that I thought was a wonderful guy, and I really just believed in him, and I said, let me work for free. I want to learn about this business too, right? Because we talked about I was building my product, so maybe learning about the media business would also be of value long term, regardless if I make money. So I went here. Let me help. Let's work on this, and if we make it, that's great. So what I mean by that is loving what you do, genuine curiosity, and kind of taking that leap of faith it goes a long way. So I would almost go ahead and say the same thing with creators. If they're just strictly doing this for monetary reasons without understanding that there will be a process to go through, it'll be very challenging. So creators that just, hey, let me try and let me keep going because I love it. Joe Rogan's such a great example. Who's the biggest podcast in the world. He did this for 5 years just because he wanted to have conversations with people. Right. And 5 years later, it obviously started paying himself, and now he's doing incredible. So sometimes it's just he's taking that kind of leap and saying, hey, if I'm willing to do for free, when we start getting paid, it's going to be wonderful.
Right. Patrick, that is fascinating stuff, and I'm so glad we connected because this is not a topic or a type of business that we've had through our 75 or so interviews we've done. So we really, really appreciate your time today, Patrick Israel with STEM Media. Really great stuff, and thank you so much for taking the time.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad we did this as well.